So first of all, let me apologize for not getting these videos to you sooner. That was my bad. Holidays and all that craziness. But anyway, we're back on the horse. So up until this point, everything we've talked about has been at the sentence level, whether that be rephrasing or simplifying. So what we're going to do here is we're going to talk about the actual paragraphs themselves. And we're going to start with a short passage because they are shorter. Kind of makes sense. So anyway, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to pick out the author's main point from, the 5 or 6 sentences that you can find in a short passage. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's medium. And so this is going to be a passage we've already looked at before. It's the one about the transplantation of organs. It comes from the GRE Big Book. And so you might be reading this and you might say, "Oh, here's the main idea. No, here's the main idea. No, here's the main idea. Here's the main idea. Here is the main idea." And you might be asking yourself, which one of these is the main idea? In the case of this passage, the main idea is going to be this one right here. And you might ask yourself, how do you even know that? What exactly is the clue? So there are actually 2 clues here. The first clue is going to be the word however. Whenever an author, especially an author in academia, wants to present his or her idea or main point, it's very common for them to build up to it. So they'll say, previously we thought this, or in the past this was the idea, or it's normal for this to happen. It's kind of like if the professor calls you into the office and they say, normally you do great work, and you start getting a little bit nervous because you know the professor is going to say, however, on your latest assignment, it was no good, etc., etc. So that's kind of what's going on here. That's how I know that this is probably the main idea. It's because of that word, however. Now, more importantly, every sentence after this supports this idea. If there was a new idea after this sentence, that might be the main idea. But because every sentence after this one supports the fact that rats are special, that tells me that, hey, this is the main idea. It gives it away with the context. So really, you can find the main idea in 3 locations. So the first location is going to be right in the very beginning. We call this rip the Band-Aid right off. So you can imagine an author gives his or her main point as the first sentence and then spends the rest of the passage supporting that point. Now, these are not super common, but they're not never. So just keep that in mind. So the second place you can find the main idea is going to be somewhere in the middle. I want you to imagine that the author is building suspense. And then finally, once the author gets to that main idea, what is the author going to do? The author is going to spend the rest of the passage supporting that point. This is the most common. This is what we see most frequently. So keep that in mind. The third point, or the third one, is going to be right at the very end. So you can imagine that the author is building suspense until the very end, and really the author doesn't support that idea at all because it's the concluding sentence, or everything before it is the support building up to that point. Again, which one of these is the most common? It's going to be the middle one, ripping the Band-Aid right off and putting the main idea at the very end. Those are going to be less common. So I think now we should go ahead and take a look at an example. So let's do that. So here we go. Again, this is going to be a passage from the Big Book. And you'll notice that it opens with this sentence: quantum mechanics is a highly successful theory. That's a very strong opinion right there. So you might be thinking, hey, this is the author ripping the Band-Aid right off, getting to the point right in the very beginning. Of course, the problem is as you keep reading, it doesn't really say that quantum mechanics is successful. In fact, if you take a look at the 3rd or the 4th line, the predictions of quantum mechanics, however, give only the probability of an event. Again, we have that word, however, we have this new idea. So it seems like the opening sentence is not going to be the main idea. So we keep reading, et cetera, et cetera. And again, we start thinking, hey, maybe it's in the middle. Maybe it's that however point. But after that however point, the author starts talking about Einstein. The author starts talking about what he believed and stuff like this. We're getting kind of these new ideas, So finally, once you get to the very end, we have a very strong opinion from the author again. Einstein's approach is almost certainly erroneous. So this kind of seems like the main idea. It seems like the author wrote this passage to attack Einstein. So this is going to be one of those rare cases where the author builds up to the main idea, creates suspense, and makes it into the final line. Let's go ahead and take a look at another one. In fact, what I want you to do here is pause the video and give this one a shot by yourself. So here's the passage. Again, it's from the GRE Big Book. Good luck. So hopefully you identified the main idea right there, political conditions as well as a certain anti-intellectual bias, etc., etc. And you might be thinking, how do I know that this is the main idea? And again, that's going to be the one where it's in the middle and then they spend the rest of the passage supporting it. Because if you look at every sentence after this highlighted blue sentence, notice it's talking about the politics. It's talking about the certain anti-intellectual bias. Every sentence after this highlighted blue portion is supporting the highlighted blue portion. So that tells us that this right here is going to be the main idea. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at another one. So again, go ahead and pause the video and give this one a shot. So hopefully you identified the main idea as right here. So one of the most important aspects of this research is understanding how different types of land use can affect climate change. The reason why I identified this as the main idea is because if you look at every sentence after this, they're talking about land use and affecting climate change, and they're giving examples. So as you can see, every sentence after the blue highlighted sentence is supporting this point. So that is a very strong indication that this is going to be the main idea. Again, that's going to be the one where the author puts the main idea in the middle and then spends the rest of the passage supporting it. Okay, let's look at two more examples. So here's the first one. Again, pause the video and give it a shot. I identified the main idea as the opening sentence. So again, this is a very strong opinion from the author, basically saying that the research is bad. And if you look at every sentence after this, the author seems to be supporting this point. The research is bad, the research is bad, the research is bad. Now, it is true at the very end, the author says, hey, we need more research, we need to do greater stuff. So you could have potentially identified this as the main idea. In my opinion, I feel like that is in support of this opinion. So I'm still going to identify the opening sentence as the main idea. And of course, that's going to be the version where we rip the band-aid off. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at one more. Here it is. Go ahead and pause the video and give it a shot. Okay, so in my opinion, I identified the main idea right here. In order to better understand the role emotions play, etc., further research is needed because I feel like the author is building up to this point. Building up to this point. Everything before here, the author saying, hey, recent, blah, 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 but it's not exactly complete. And the author is basically saying, hey, at the end, we have to do more research right there. Okay, so this, of course, is going to be building suspense until the very end. Let me reiterate, the most common type is going to be the author putting the main idea in the middle and then spending the rest of the sentence supporting that. So just keep that in mind. But I did want to show you 3 examples of each one, or 1 example of each one. Okay, hope you enjoyed this, and I'm glad to be back on the horse.